Hello, this is Flurry Moon. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing something a little different, but I hope you'll stick around because, guys, this is going to be a wild video. Today we will be taking a deep dive into the app Episode. Chances are, if you're here, you may have heard of Episode, or maybe you've played it when you were like 14 for like a week and then forgot all about it. Maybe you still play the game to this day like I do. But if you don't know anything about the app, Episode is a mobile game by Pocket Gems released on July 11th, 2013. The app is structured so there are thousands of stories to choose from, where you usually play as the main character and customize your name, facial features, hair, clothes, etc. In these stories, you make choices in each chapter that will determine how the game plays out. This includes getting different endings, choosing your favorite love interest, and just how the characters act towards you in general. Other stories don't include any choices, so playing it is more like reading a visual novel where you do not have power over anything that happens in the story. The app is still around today, the last decade being filled with millions of authors and readers flooding the app for creative escape. But how deep does it get? We will be going over the Episode Iceberg made by me with the help of the r/episode subreddit. You guys are the best. If you don't know, an iceberg is basically just a deep dive on a topic that is structured from most well-known facts to most obscure. The deeper you go, the more weird, unknown, and sometimes dark parts of the topic come to light. With that, let's begin the Episode Iceberg. Before anything, I just want to say I'm definitely missing a ton of stuff, so feel free to comment below things I missed, or if you'd like a part 2, I'd totally do it. So let's start with the tip of the iceberg. Gem choices. We're starting off the tip of the iceberg with something you've probably heard of even if you have never even downloaded the game, and that is gem choices. I feel like everyone online has seen those memes of an Episode character having to pay 30 gems to wear a gown to their wedding, while the free option is like, wear jeans and a t-shirt. Honestly, the free option these days would be like, break off the engagement and spit in his face. Also, you heard me right. The free option. Gems cost actual real-life money to get. So if you're broke, most of the time you can't pick any of the fun options, like accept the prince's kindness and take his jacket, heart, or rudely turn him down. Do you want to get a paternity test, Faye? Yes, I want to know if this baby is ours, for 19 gems, or I'm fine with not knowing. Also, I would love to know the context of this story because what? I want to give the right first impression. I should kindly insist everyone go have dinner. Have Marcellus join me for dinner. Or have them stand around watching me eat until I'm done. Can you guess what the free option was? I have nothing to hide. I will hold my head high and prove my innocence. Prove my innocence and blow them away with the truth for 19 gems, or be sneaky and lie, raising their suspicions. That last one is actually so insane. As you can guess, gem choices completely take you out of the story, and honestly, it makes the game almost unplayable at times, but not every story has them, which brings us to Episode Originals versus Community Stories. You guys, I just realized throughout this entire video, I say Episode Originals. I know some people do call it that, but they're called Episode Officials. Like, they are called Episode Officials, so I don't know why... I don't know why I said Episode Original throughout this whole video. It shouldn't really make that much of a difference, but that's what I meant. I don't know, you guys. Stories on the app are split into two different categories: Episode Originals and Community Stories. Originals are stories either bought by Episode and tweaked to fit their standards, or created by Episode themselves from scratch. These stories are usually condensed into about 8 chapters, naturally making them feel rushed or lazy, and are jam-packed with gem choices. Community stories, on the other hand, are made by independent writers who usually make money, if at all, based on how many reads they get. These tend to be much more well thought out, carefully directed, and are way less restricted by gem choices or needing to fit all the content into a small number of chapters. Like I said before, Episode can buy a community story and make it into an Episode Original if they successfully buy it from the writer. A lot of the time you can find the original story and the Episode official story on the author's page. Either way, community stories are much preferred within the fanbase, and I cannot blame them. Episode ads. Back in like 2016, Episode would have these ads on social media to get people to download the app. They would be in the form of a scenario with choices to show that the game is choose your own adventure. These wouldn't be actual screenshots from a real story in the game, they were made solely for advertising. The one I remember seeing all the time and is my personal favorite, wait, it's Aaron, not Erin? Fine, I plan the next one, or run for the hills. Fine, I plan the next one. Don't look, it's bad luck. Buy a new dress or cancel wedding. Ugh, you make me crazy. Smash the vase or take it to the bedroom. These ads designed to strike attention sure did when they started going viral on Tumblr and people started making their own. I can't believe you ate all my fucking Takis. Start World War III or A squared plus B squared equals C squared. It's not what it looks like. Why did you sleep with my girlfriend, Chad? Or why is she still wearing a bra when there's one on the lamp? Looks like Bae is in the shower. Lock him in the bathroom and set the house on fire? Or start World War III with your large arsenal of military weapons? People really love to make their episode characters start World War III, I guess. Needless to say, this brought a lot of people to download the app out of curiosity or for laughs. Classic, Ink, Limelight. Throughout the years, Episode has had 3 different art styles, beginning with Classic, the original and only art style from the app's launch in 2013 to 2016. The style of characters is a little awkward and clunky in my opinion, but I wasn't on the app during this time, so maybe I just don't get it, you know? Some of the girl avatar designs are actually really cute, and the outfits are some of the best I've seen of all 3 art styles. The guy avatars, however, are actually so scary and uncanny looking. I genuinely cannot look at them for too long. They all have this weird jawline and look like they're constantly grossed out by something. I just cannot get behind it. Ink was introduced in late 2015 with the Demi Lovato Path to Fame story. More on that later. Ink then became available to everyone in 2016. Maybe it's because I joined the app during this era, but Ink is by far my favorite style out of the 3. The facial expressions and movements are so animated, the guys aren't that ugly, and I just love how cartoony it is, in that it wasn't trying too hard to look hyper realistic. This art style brought some of the most iconic stories and memes to come out of Episodes, so I have such a soft spot for the Ink era. Which brings us to our final and current art style, Limelight. Limelight became available to everyone in 2017, and it was quite the change. Limelight is a lot more realistic looking than the previous art styles, and it led to more diversity, such as plus-size avatars and way more inclusive hairstyles, which is great. Limelight is objectively the, quote, best of the 3, but it really comes down to what you prefer and usually nostalgia. What is your favorite style? Demi Lovato, the Dolan Twins, Mean Girls, etc. There was an era where Episode would collaborate with different companies and create these stories that involved celebrities, movies, TV shows, and even influencers, ? The first of these was the Demi Lovato story I mentioned earlier. There were actually 3 seasons, each walking you through your character's, quote, path to fame after meeting Demi Lovato herself. I loved this story. I so vividly remember playing it. I played it in high school. I should have been dating. I should have been going to parties. I was playing this in high school. Episode then collaborated with Mean Girls, this time separating the seasons into different stories. The first one being Mean Girls senior year, taking place the year after the 2004 movie. Then Mean Girls Sorority Rush, where you and the iconic characters take on college. And lastly, Mean Girls Spring Break. The Mean Girls trilogy was particularly interesting because the art style was a mix between Ink and this weird pre-Limelight style to make the characters look as close to the movie as possible. But in my opinion, it's really odd for your character to be in regular Episode Ink style, but you're standing next to this. Next up is Pretty Little Liars, a spin-off game of the TV show where your character joins the 4 main characters to solve what happened to their missing friend Allison. And of course, there was a sequel called Pretty Little Liars to Die For. We will also talk about the very specific art style in the PLL stories later in the iceberg. Next up, this one makes me laugh. Next up is Cameron Dallas Started With a Lie. I can't stop laughing already. If you don't remember, Cameron Dallas was a Viner/YouTuber back in the day and is the first influencer to collaborate with Episode, I think. I was actually shocked reading the description of this story because I expected it to be something like, quote, you meet your favorite YouTuber at a party, What will you do when he has his eyes set on you? Or something super basic like that. But here is what episode wiki tells you about this story, okay? Plot. You are questioned about a murder, and you tell the whole story, starting how you met Cameron Dallas with a lie, about you dating him to make Karen jealous because she dated your crush, Peter. Cameron tracks his phone and arrives with his car, which causes hitting Victor. As you told the whole story to the detective, he releases Cameron Dallas from jail. What? First of all, I had a stroke trying to understand that. Second of all, I need to read this, and I wish I could. Third of all, who the hell is Victor? There are also a few more, including Falling for the Dolan Twins, Pitch Perfect in Deep Treble, and Hollywood Days with Hayes, including Hayes Greer, which I have no recollection of this story. Does anyone remember this? The only stories out of all the collaborations that are still up and playable on the app are the Pretty Little Liars stories. I'm assuming the licensing for the rest of them expired and Episode didn't bother to renew them, or there were copyright issues. Next tier. We are now entering the next tier of the iceberg, meaning we've gotten through most of the well-known stuff, and now we're going to get a little deeper. Starting with iconic community stories. These stories are written by independent authors that absolutely changed the game and the trajectory of how the app has grown into what it is today. That was kind of hard to say. These are not just really well done stories. Some of them are actually not even that great looking back, but they paved the way, and I gotta respect that. First and foremost, one of the most read stories on the app with over 86 million reads. Chain Reaction by Miss MJ. This story had a chokehold on me back in the day. You play as Callie, who, after witnessing a gang murder, is forced to join the Bronze Dragons and falls in love with the sexy leader and her captor, Trey Bailey. I don't like blonde men, so I'm good. This story really set the stage for what the app will become, and that is absolutely stacked with mafia stories. More on that later. It became so popular and well-loved that the author teamed up with Episode to make the next 2 books in the series Episode originals. This made a lot of people upset at the time because, of course, you had to pay gems to make the choices you, actually want to make. That didn't stop these entries from being extremely successful along with the original. Nowadays, the series is mostly seen as extremely toxic and overdone. It basically glamorizes Stockholm Syndrome, and Trey is honestly really creepy. I think most of us were pretty young reading that, and probably shouldn't have been reading that. Trigger warning for this next one, we will briefly be talking about emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. I know, this is a kids app. Up next is the first community story I ever read, and that is Blake. It is centered around the main character, Blake, a high school girl who has been abused by her mother, Kate, her whole life. Her mother hates her because she got pregnant with Blake in high school, causing her parents to kick her out. She never gave up Blake because she has this weird logic that having her daughter ruined her life, so she does everything she can to ruin Blake's life and make her miserable. You guys, I don't know. A stepdad comes into the picture and begins abusing her. The story is so dark. That's when Liam, a gang member that looks literally 54 years old but is in high school, swoops in to save Blake from her living nightmare. This story has 17.1 million reads and is followed by a sequel surrounding Blake and Liam's daughter, Grace, which has 4.1 million reads. This may not seem as popular as Chain Reaction, but it really was iconic and brought a lot of serious topics to the app. Now, if it was done correctly, that's up for debate. Let's speedrun a few more iconic community stories because we have lots to get to. The Shaw Brothers, Complicated, Faking Death, Galactic Game, The Teacher, Dripping Mascara, The New Girl, The Doberman. I forgot to add this, but what's my favorite right now? Bad Influence. So good. And so much more that we may get to later in the iceberg. Though sometimes controversial, you have to give these authors some credit for creating something so monumental from scratch with lots of coding involved, all on their own. Mafia stories. Sooner or later, we'd have to talk in depth about the insane amount of mafia-themed stories on this app. As mentioned earlier, one of, if not the first mafia story on Episode was Chain Reaction, and boy, did it cause just that. Get it? After this story blew up, it seems that almost every story occupying the drama section involves a, quote, notorious gang leader that captures the helpless, innocent, with a heart of gold main character that makes his ice-cold heart melt, causing him to care about another human for the very first time in his life. Give or take a few details like the main character holding her own and having some sass, which for some reason doesn't get her killed, but this trope has been severely overdone. Although the most popular genre on the app amongst casual readers, Most of the community sees mafia stories as a joke, and there are tons of memes like the height difference often used in these stories, the excessive tattoos and scars the love interests have, and of course the obvious romanticizing of toxic abusive relationships shouldn't have as much appeal as it does. I guess some of the storylines are mildly interesting, especially to younger readers, which is concerning to say the least. Okay, moving on. Ink to Limelight drama. As someone who witnessed this in real time, it was a bit wild. As we know, ink was the mainly used style on episode from late 2015 to mid 2017 when Limelight was debuted. I can't speak for everyone, but I was not happy. It was a big change from the cartoony style of ink that had so much character and expressive animations to what felt like at the time smooth-looking, soulless characters that almost gave Uncanny Valley vibes. Nowadays, I'm used to Limelight and I do like it a lot, but at the time, a lot of people were really unhappy. I remember reading the Hunting Bad series by Hope Moon. Does anyone remember this? And when she announced the next entry in the series would be exclusively in Limelight, people were up in arms in the comments saying they will not be reading. It wasn't the author's fault. Limelight was new and being updated constantly, so it was the obvious choice. But seeing the beloved characters go from this to this, it was hard for people. It's true that even to this day, you can read and create stories using ink, but only Limelight is used in official stories and ink will never get an update again. So naturally, ink has kind of been left in the dust by authors and readers. It starts with a bra. You guys knew this shit was coming. You knew it. It Starts with a Bra is an episode original that was published in May of 2018. This story was controversial and had an episode receiving quite a lot of backlash from the community. The story begins with your main character moving to a new town where you find your next door neighbor is a hot, bad boy. Pretty basic sounding, right? That is until he breaks into your house, sneaks into your bedroom, and steals your bra just to hang it on the flagpole at school? Huh? Yes, this is the main love interest. This begins some kind of prank war between the main character and the bad boy, Alec. There was also another love interest, Dylan, but it's clear the story wants you to pick Alec so bad. If you need a visual of this, the YouTuber Gen X Pen, love her, made a series playing this story, and every time she spent gems, actual money, to not spend time with the creep Alec, it always brought her back to him anyway. People were livid about this story because once again, it promotes toxic and predatory behavior and the actual story is just a mess. Like, the story sucks. Here's a post from the episode's subreddit back in 2020. First off, what the fuck? What kind of love interest would steal someone's bra and people would think that's cute? No, this is not cute and romantic. This is literally a crime because you stole someone's private property and it was trespassing. No, Alec, I don't care whether you help main character or not. You are a piece of shit. And no, don't go into main character's room when she said to leave her alone. Man, you really don't know what personal space is, do you? And when you blame yourself for main character almost drowning herself, the fuck is this? I was thrilled because you are trash. Alec, when you kiss Tiana and then just acts like a jerk to main character, you are the worst love interest I had ever met. Needless to say, most of the episode originals nowadays are exactly like this. I feel like before It Starts with a Bra, the episode originals still had some depth and good storylines, kind of, but now they're just so beyond lazy. If you don't believe me, read Don't Tell Daddy. Nowadays, you can only make your own episode story on a computer using code directing. This is extremely time-consuming and honestly requires talent and a good amount of trial and error. But there was a time on the app where making stories was a lot easier and more accessible. Mobile Creator was brought to episode in 2016. This allowed users to write, direct, and eventually publish their own stories using their smartphone. It was a more simple and basic way of making your stories with no coding required. You would simply move the character where you wanted it to stand, type the dialogue, and that was pretty much it. Of course, your options were extremely limited when it came to clothing and animations, and there was no advanced directing whatsoever, so your characters would be super glitchy most of the time. I used the Mobile Creator a lot back in the day, and I actually still have a story up published to this day that I made back in 2017 called Copycat. I could honestly make a whole series reacting to this shit show of a story, so comment below if you'd like to see it. Mobile Creator did lead to some wild stories being published though, since it didn't require a whole lot of effort to make. However, it was too much effort than it was worth to keep, so Episode announced the Mobile Creator's departure in July of 2019. I remember going onto the app and seeing that they took it down, and I was crushed. Maybe one day it'll make a comeback, but it's unlikely. Rest in peace, Mobile Stories. Next tier, we are now entering the second to lowest tier of the iceberg, so we're really getting into the stuff that you would only know if you've been in the community for quite some time. Controversial author drama. As much as I make fun of bad stories, I still have a lot of respect for those who put themselves out there and publish their own content for the world to judge. With that being said, that does not make anyone exempt from criticism. I would say one of the most controversial authors on the app currently is Heli. Heli? I don't know, you guys. Before getting into why people don't like her, I wanted to point out that there are many rumors that she's racist, but I myself found zero proof of this, so I'll be ignoring that claim unless someone out there has any proof. Heli is one of the biggest authors on the app, with almost every one of her stories having reads in the millions. She currently has 3 episode original stories and 4 community stories, all occupying the top of the romance genre list. So that means the stories are pretty great, right? I'll start this section by saying I myself have never read any of these stories in full. I've started pretty much all of them, but they never clicked for me personally. But tons of readers in the community have a lot to say, especially about her choices in writing love interests. It seems as though in most of her stories, the love interest is super toxic, abusive, and honestly just a bully to the main character. I've seen some screenshots of her episode original, Deal with the Devil, and the description is, you're the school's golden girl pretending to be rich when in reality, you're poor. The school director's son finds out about your secret and threatens to expose you. Okay, sounds pretty basic. I feel like I've seen this anime before, but whatever. He takes a picture of the main character at her job and blackmails her into being his pet. Yeah, my pet is not allowed to teach anybody without my consent. Is this how you should treat your owner?
I can throw whatever I want to throw. I can do whatever I want to do. Well, you can do nothing but accept it.
Huh? Honestly, I hate to be that person who takes things too seriously, but there are kids on this app who are going to see this behavior and root for these characters to be together. They're going to think this is what a healthy relationship looks like, or just a normal relationship. I think Episode is so focused on restricting swear words and the use of blood and violence, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but in my opinion, they should alert their attention over to shit like this instead. There is a gem choice in her other story, Married to My Boss, that is honestly one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen an author do on this fucking app. Trigger warning, essay. In this scene, your character is about to get dressed when this guy, no idea who he is, I'm not reading this show of a story, is talking about how the main character can't afford her rent, that there are, quote, other options, and that she's, quote, attractive. Why don't we make use of that? Basically implying he will pay for her rent if she sleeps with him, and I you not. The gem choice, which costs real human money, is, quote, put him in his place for 19 gems, or the free option, agree to his offer, ... Are you f***ing kidding me? This author is asking readers, sorry, mostly children, to pay her real money for their character to not get sexually assaulted. Fuck you. I'm getting mad. I don't know what happens after this choice, nor do I give a shit. This is all I had to see in order to make up my mind that Heli sucks and I hate her. Okay, I'm getting a little too mad. There are so much more examples of her horrific writing, but if I keep talking about her, I'm gonna get even more mad. So I'll put some screenshots here. Moving on to another controversial author, and you guys, I feel like it gets worse. Like, oh my god, okay, breathe. Grace Slick. This drama is wild, so bear with me while I try my best to explain everything in full. Huge thanks to this commenter right here in the subreddit for putting the full story in one place. It would have been very hard to piece together on my own. Grace Slick was an episode author who had a pretty beloved story within the community called Nocturne City 2084. I don't know too much about this story, but from screenshots and old Reddit posts, it seems extremely well put together. The directing looks like it must have taken hours and hours, and people really enjoyed playing it. This was until Episode decided to take the story down for, in their opinion, being too similar to Cyberpunk 2077. Whether it is plagiarism or not, I have no idea, but either way, people were not happy. Everyone was begging Episode to re-upload the story, which eventually they did, but it absolutely does not end there. The story was back on the app, but Grace Slick, the author, locked it behind a 35-gem paywall. This could have easily gotten her story taken down again, because according to Episode guidelines, you cannot add a gem choice to your story without a free option for readers who cannot spend the gems. By doing this, you either had to spend the gems or not be able to read the story, which is not allowed. Readers were rightfully confused, posting on Reddit asking why she did this, especially after everyone rallied behind her to get her a second chance. After receiving criticism from the readers for locking the story, she deleted a bunch of posts from her Instagram and turned off her comments. But that was only the beginning of one of the craziest mental breakdowns I've seen on the internet, let alone within the Episode community. First, she made a post with a long caption, going absolutely berserk on everyone. I'm not sure I can even read these posts out loud on YouTube. I'll put screenshots. You guys will have to read it for yourselves because I don't want this video to be taken down. But here are some snippets. Fuck the Episode community. All you cuck motherfuckers can go fuck yourselves. You want to know the real reason this story got removed the first time? Because a bunch of weeaboo sissy motherfuckers reported my story, accusing it of being a Cyberpunk 2077 ripoff. Get yo young ass out of here with your bullshit comments. You better sit yo ass down before you get smacked the f around. Get yo skinny nosy ass off my page and go back to... I'm not even going to say that out loud. I can't do that. Fuck you and your motherfucking mama. I can't read this whole thing, but the screenshots are on Reddit and it really does get even worse from here if that's possible. After her original horrific caption, she then went on to make some story posts announcing her departure. What's up? It's yours truly, the Episode Messiah. Cringe. To all my supporters, I am leaving the Episode community for good. I will also be deleting my Instagram. All I wanted to do was write stories I was passionate about on a platform that promotes, quote, diversity and inclusion. She then starts to individually call people out again, because I don't think she can help herself, honestly. You double-crossing self-righteous traitors. Go fuck yourself to the moon and back. You're a worthless, insignificant I won't be repeating... Oh, wait, this is me now. I won't be repeating anymore because it genuinely... I keep saying this, but it gets so much worse. She starts using the R word a lot and is so incredibly racist to a specific individual in the last few posts. It's mind-blowing and honestly heartbreaking. Moral of the story, Grace Slick is not only an absolute clown, she needs so much mental help, it's not even funny, and I'm glad she's off the internet, and I hope it's for good. There are so many more controversial authors, and we'll get to some more later, but we would be here all day if we went through them all. So comment below if you'd like a part 2. Let's move on to something a bit more lighthearted. Brian Austin Donovan. You guys knew this shit was coming. You knew it was coming. I know you did. This is a much shorter entry and a much needed one after that whirlwind of a section. On May 5th, 2023, a post was made in the Episode subreddit. I'm crying, what is this, LMFAO, with a picture from the story Fearless by Delia T. Brian Austin Donovan. This is an art scene from the story, and I think people found it so funny looking and such a far cry from the typical art that is used in these popular stories that it became a huge meme within the community. Brian Austin Donovan, or BAD, posts swarmed the subreddit for weeks. Most people got annoyed with it after a while. I, the whole time, thought it was hilarious, and I can't get enough of BAD. I don't believe the author has ever responded or commented on the meme, but I hope one day they do. Limelight beta design. In 2017, there were a few stories where it seemed they were testing out this new art style, but it's not the Limelight we know today. The only story that has this pre-Limelight style currently on the app is the Pretty Little Liars series. It's this weird looking, almost Limelight style, but something is just so off. I remember being weirded out by this art style, and I still don't like it very much. You can definitely see how this was the transition from ink to Limelight, and the developers were just trying a few things out. But it's pretty interesting to think, what if this became the mainly used art style on episode? Removed and deleted stories. Throughout the years, there are many reasons why stories would be taken down from an episode. Whether the story was inappropriate, plagiarism, or the author themselves deleted it from existence, there are hundreds of beloved stories that will never see the light of day again. I may go as far as to say most of these stories are now lost media. A removed story has been taken down by episode for breaking guidelines or whatever reason they see fit. A deleted story has been taken down by its author. None of these stories can be played on the app. I got this information from a post in the episode subreddit that lists pretty much all of these missing stories, so if you would like to see the full list, I will put the link in the description. Two of the most popular deleted community stories are Adrenaline by Evil Ebony and Infamous by Kayla S. I personally don't understand deleting a whole story for no good reason, especially when it was beloved by hundreds of thousands of people, but I guess at the end of the day, it's their decision and they don't really need a reason, I guess. It's just kind of unfortunate. Some popular removed community stories are Nocturne City 2084, of course, Obsession, Swan Sins, Dirty Gardener, Glamour, and so much more. For a lot of these stories, we're not sure exactly why they were taken down. Just reading some of the descriptions, I can see why they may have been seen as inappropriate or too mature for the app. Lastly, some popular removed episode original stories include Loving Bad, Bad Boys Girl, Summer Share, and of course, the celebrity collaborations we mentioned earlier. We know the celebrity collaborations were removed because of copyright reasons and expired contracts and whatnot, but I don't think we know why the other ones were removed. I remember reading Bad Boys Girl and I loved it. Tangled Love Plagiarism. There are even some stories that were not taken down, but however were forced to be changed due to plagiarism. A popular classic story from 2014 called Tangled Love had to be rewritten due to backlash based on the similarities it shares with the manga and anime series, forgive my pronunciation, Itatsura na Kiss or Itakiss. Is what I know it as. The plot of Tangled Love, although basic, is very similar to Itakiss. A girl moves in with her crush after some kind of incident at her home. It does sound like it could be a coincidence, however, it's hard to find any footage or screenshots of the story before the author was forced by episode to change it. There's a screen-recorded YouTube video from 8 years ago of the story, and most of the comments are talking about how they remember it going way differently, and how some of the scenes used to be almost exactly the same as Itakiss. I'm sure it had to be pretty identical for episode to step in, since a lot of romance tropes are basic and overused and nothing ever happens to those stories. Portia Got Pregnant. Portia Got Pregnant was an episode official beta story, so it was unfinished and most likely testing if readers liked it or not. Readers did not like it. It received a lot of complaints that the main character was a horrible person and that there were even some offensive jokes that really rubbed people the wrong way. I feel like we've seen way worse on this app, but I think people were just shocked that episode themselves would release something like this. I'll put screenshots here. It was crazy and it was, I'm pretty sure, deleted off the app. So, episode Ivy. Ivy was an app made by Episode to basically be a sister app, but 18 plus with mature themes. I never got the chance to play this app, and I'm not sure it even made it past beta, but a lot of people had mixed feelings about it. Some readers thought it should be taken down since kids could be reading. On the other hand, the app clearly states it's 18 plus, so it's not like it was ever catering to minors. Either way, the app was taken down. However, I found a link to one of the Ivy stories called Club 69 that you can read on Episode, and I have no idea how this is possible. I thought the Ivy stories would only be on that app, but there are links out there, so go crazy, I guess. 2019 community guideline change. Nowadays on Episode, stories are pretty restricted. Of course, things occasionally will slip through the cracks, and we will mention stuff like that later, and are usually caught after some time, but for the most part, Episode is pretty strict about their guidelines. But it wasn't always like that. The app has always been PG-13, so of course there were rules, but the biggest change was in 2019. Most swear words now had to be censored, besides like hell and damn. No implications of sex, no nudity even if censored, restrictions on guns, alcohol, drugs, and violence, no depictions of public figures. This all seems pretty standard for the the most part, but at the time it was a slap in the face to writers, especially writers of action stories who are now left with not much to work with. People were outraged, especially because episodes themselves have been caught many times not abiding by their own guidelines. A lot of these stories from before the guideline changes are still up, and it's almost shocking to see the F word not censored on the app, but that's how it used to be. What happened to Miss MJ? This is the last entry before the bottom tier of the iceberg. If Miss MJ sounds familiar to you, that's because she is the writer of the Chain Reaction series we mentioned so many times in this iceberg. This author ran the app for years, accumulating hundreds of millions of reads, only to one day disappear off the internet. In my opinion, things like this happen all the time. Someone has a niche following on a platform, they lose interest, and kind of forget to update their fans and supporters. I'm sure she's somewhere living life, maybe even barely thinking about episode, but nobody knows for sure. Her latest story update was in February of 2023, and supposedly posted that she had an illness and needed a break. Since then, her Instagram has been deleted, and nobody within the community has heard from her since. This next part is all speculation, and I would hate to spread false rumors, so this is just that, a rumor, but many people do think that she's passed away. A Redditor even said they remember her claiming that she has someone to let her fans know if she does pass away. There's no proof of this, and all we actually know is that she has an illness and stopped posting. It's hard to find anything about her since no one in the community knows her real name or personal social media, which is totally understandable and should absolutely stay that way for her own privacy. However, Miss MJ, if you're out there, we hope you're happy and healthy, and maybe one day we'll get an update. Bottom tier. We have finally reached the bottom tier of the iceberg. Whoever has made it this far, thank you for sitting through this whirlwind of a video. Things are about to get obscure, weird, and even a little dark, so let's just jump right into the bottom of the episode iceberg. The Serial Killer Chronicles. Around a year ago, a story being published called The Serial Killer Chronicles by Police was posted. The description reads, "You're a serial killer who abuses and kills his victims. Who's going to be your next victim?" Seems very creepy, and there are some stories you play as the villain, so it doesn't sound super out of the ordinary. However, upon playing, readers started to realize the victims were based on actual real people in the community. This Reddit post reads, "This author has taken my friend's name and avatar without her consent and added her to a story that breaks episode TOS by depicting excessive violence. It's a sick and twisted story. Please report." People were rightfully scared and confused. The writer of the post went on to say this author wrote the story about her friend when she did not finish a read for read within 1 hour. This is something people within the community do to support each other's stories, so it is absolutely unhinged that this person decided to make a visual of this girl because she didn't finish reading their story yet. It seems as though they had been scouring the episode forums, starting trouble with people, and probably looking for users to throw into their sick fantasy. Upon playing more, readers were horrified to find more real people's avatars featured, shown being tortured and killed. One of my friends is in this story. I read half a chapter and immediately reported, "It's disgusting to violate actual women like this. What the f?" This sick individual also allegedly used real information about the users' lives, even including one of their children. This is so sad, and I can't imagine being one of these innocent people just trying to support others within the community and reading each other's stories and getting disrespected and bullied in such a twisted, disgusting way. I'm sure this author went onto the forums with this idea already in their head, and I doubt the whole read for read excuse is true. Nonetheless, the story was eventually taken down after hundreds of users reported its episode. I have never seen a screenshot or even an in-depth description of the story, and honestly, that's probably for the best. Diaper story. Yep. Now we're starting to get weird. It's the bottom of the iceberg. What did you expect? There's not a whole lot of information on this story, but thanks to the episode subreddit, I was able to get some screenshots. Basically, around 2018, someone out there with most likely either a diaper or some kind of weird fetish made a story called "Girl Has an Accident in Pants on the First Day of College." Creative title. The plot follows a college girl who, well, has an accident and is forced to wear a diaper to class. She proceeds to get bullied by her peers. "How are you, poopy pants? OMG, are you wearing diapers? Oh no, they know I pooped myself. And then I have diapers. This day couldn't get any worse." This, of course, got taken down by episode, but there are still screenshots on Instagram, and it's honestly so weird, but the screenshots are hilarious. Story find. A post was made in the episode subreddit 3 months ago asking the community if they remember a story OP cannot find. I'm looking for a Limelight story. It was pretty underrated last time I read it, but I know that the story has 4 main characters. An introverted girl who has a rebel twin, an uptight ginger boy whose entire family hated him, a blonde class clown boy, and a black boy. I can only remember 2, which were Trevor and Angela, and I know that Trevor was into Angela too. I do know that each main character had 2 love interests that they could romance. I remember that Trevor and the blonde boy would constantly chat at night. I also remember Angela's sister running away or something, and that she would constantly get into fights with her parents. But for the life of me, I cannot remember the story name. Posts are made like this all the time. I myself have made one. The app has been around for a decade now. A lot of us were kids when we played, and there are bound to be stories we can't remember the names of and want to find. A user quickly commented saying, "Hi, I know what story you're talking about, but I can't remember the name either. But unfortunately, the author committed suicide, and I believe their friend might have deleted the story out of respect for her." 2 other users asked who the author was, but this account saying she passed away never responded. That's all the information we have. The post itself asking about the story only has 2 upvotes and 4 comments. Nobody knows the story name or author, and nobody knows if the author actually did pass away. If this is the truth, I wish the author could have known she made such a positive impact on people who remember her story. If this is just a rumor, obviously that's good news, and I hope she's living her best life. Nonetheless, if anyone knows the name of the story or has any information, please comment below or in the episode subreddit. Or you can just DM me. Cindy Gaultier. Cindy. I don't know how to say her name. This will be a shorter entry since there's not a whole lot of information on this particular incident. Cindy Gaultier is an author with many popular stories on the app, including Envy, Envy 2, Lifelike, Dirty Little Secrets, and The Hollywood Scandal. All of her stories accumulate over 70 million reads, so it's safe to say she has a lot of supporters. However, she has a lot of critics as well. It's been alleged that she has stolen countless artwork, had one of her stories removed from the app due to plagiarizing the TV show Gossip Girl, will block anyone who has criticism or anyone who points out her problematic behavior. We won't be going into depth on those claims, however. The reason she is so low on the iceberg is because she allegedly verbally attacked and bullied a child who was a fan of hers. This is all alleged. Do not come after me. Allegedly, a few years ago, this child sent Cindy a direct message explaining how one of her stories inspired her and she wrote a story for her essay in class. Whether this essay actually took some aspects from Cindy's stories or was just vaguely inspired by her, I have no idea. Either way, Cindy allegedly flipped out on this child, saying how this is plagiarism and she stole from her. Supposedly, she even posted screenshots of her argument with this child, thinking people would be on her side, and it backfired. I cannot find any screenshots or proof of this, but there are tons of comments in the subreddit that support this claim. I scoured the internet looking for screenshots of this, but unfortunately I couldn't find anything. I hope the child is living their best life, and I think Cindy should have handled this with a lot more grace. And she has plagiarized too. So anyway, Midnight Rose. I wasn't sure where to put this, although it is reasonably well known within the community. It is so weird and dark that I feel like it fits at the bottom of the iceberg. Some of the weirdest genres on episode would have to be either all the pregnancy stories or all the weird step sibling stories. This story, however, has actual incest as the plot and is completely glossed over and is actually romanticized. Before even getting into what this story is about, let's take a look at this screenshot. First, without reading, this looks like a threesome. Little wild for a kid's game, but whatever. Those guys look way bigger than her. Why is she so small? Those guys look a little too similar to each other. Oh my god, they are twin brothers. Okay, this is actually incest. Then you read the dialogue. When Elizabeth took you, you were only 13 and we were 22, but we knew we loved you since we held you when you were a baby. Huh? Okay, let's try our best to break this down. I cannot for the life of me figure out the actual plot of this show. I know that somehow these twin brothers knew this girl when she was a baby and they were 9 years old, hence the "we loved you since we held you as a baby" thing. Which is so diabolical, because isn't that literally the definition of grooming? Anyway, to add on to that, of course, they are her bosses, so we love another weird power dynamic. They both end up in a relationship with him, and they all sleep together at the same time, which is, again, incest. And it gets worse. It turns out the author of this story was 14 years old writing this shit, which makes sense based on how immaturely it's written, but also traumatizing to me that a literal child created this. Of course, she received a ton of criticism, to which she would defend herself, saying it's her story, she can write it how she wants, the height and age difference is not predatory, and it is not incest. It is. It is. After constantly fighting back and forth in many comment sections and a huge amount of backlash, Episode removed the story. However, I'm not sure how this happened, but she was able to re-upload her story with some minor changes. The biggest one being the two love interests are no longer brothers. We won. She writes, "Here we go again. First 4 chapters of Midnight Roses out. I did some changed with Jackson and Ace, and they are not brothers anymore, so no one can say that it is incest and shit. You will understand if you read. I only made some small changes." Clearly, she's thrilled about having to change her story. The changed version is still up on the app to this day, but was left in 2022 unfinished. Some people say she went to Wattpad to write it there instead. I don't really know. This is a last-minute entry because this just happened a couple weeks ago, and it's insane. Complaints started popping up in the subreddit about a story with the N-word hard R not censored, just on full display in one of the chapters. People were shocked that this was approved and had been up on the app for, get this, 4 years. The title is Life in Denby, and according to readers, it's basically just a Pretty Little Liars ripoff, and I'm not reading this dog shit anyway, so I wouldn't know. I'm also not sure I need the context because she could have used so many other ways to show that whatever character wrote this is a mean person, you know, if that's what she was trying to do. I don't know what she was trying to do, you guys. Of course, she received a ton of backlash for using the slur in her story, especially when she's not black, she's a white woman, and then made a post on Instagram defending herself, saying she was quoting Agatha Christie's poem and then there were none. I don't really give two flying what she's quoting. The word is racist, and I can't believe I even have to explain that, but whatever. Supposedly the slur has been removed, but the story is still up, and that's about it for that one. Enslaved. For our last entry, we will be taking it all the way back to the classic days with an extremely popular story at the time, Enslaved by Mary Galvin. The description on episode wiki reads, based on true accounts, follow Acacia's story as she struggles to free herself from human trafficking. I'm not sure if this is based on true accounts at all or entirely bullshit. The story follows Acacia, a young woman who travels to Mexico and gets kidnapped and is forced to be a... This story, as dark and disturbing as it sounds, had a lot of supporters before it was banned from episode. It's safe to say this story didn't survive due to the stricter guidelines change, especially the one in 2019 we mentioned earlier. The author had mentioned on Instagram that she was considering rewriting it in Limelight, but her last post was in 2020 promoting a new story that seems to have never been published. I'm sure the story is too dark and disturbing to put on episode today, but maybe one day she can post it to a different platform for all the people who missed out on reading it. I can't speak on if the serious subjects were written well and appropriately since I've never read the story. I'm sure it would be pretty dated nowadays, similarly to Chain Reaction, but it's safe to say Mary Galvin made a huge impact on episode and what the app is like today. The end! That brings us to the end of the iceberg. I know for a fact there is so much that I missed in this video. I know, you guys, I know. But this video would quite literally be 3 hours long, and I just do not have that in me right now. I would love to make a part 2 or another episode video or something similar to this, so comment below if you would be interested. Huge thanks once again to the episode subreddit for helping me out and giving me ideas on what to add to this video, and thanks as well to those who said they'd be interested in watching. It helped me so much, and that's about it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week. Bye!